Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. We're live on Facebook and recording right now. I'm Amy Loudermilk, the program manager for Arts Build, and we are here today with, excuse me, Lynn Talbot and Angie Bandy of HR Biz Solutions. So we're going to have a talk today about some HR strategies for your organization. So we are recording, so if you do miss any of today's presentation, you can go back and check it out on ArtsBuild's YouTube page. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Angie and Lynn for their presentation today.
Great, thank you, Amy. Well, good morning. Oh, so
you're going to have to mute
got
your
an echo.
thing. Yep, you may have to just go ahead and cut that off. For some reason, it's deciding to echo. Sorry about that. There you go. Let's see if this works. If not, you can come sit in my place.
Great. Well, good morning again. Again, we're Angie and Lynn.
There we go.
From HR Business Solutions, and we're so glad that you've joined us today. Many times people think that human resources is just for large companies, but really any company who employs a human is managing a human resource. So we're here today to offer you an opportunity for a brief self-audit, then to ask any questions you have about any HR issue, whether we've covered it or not. First, let me state that HR Business Solutions is not a law firm or a legal service. The information contained in this presentation has been provided by HR Business Solutions for informational purposes only. So this information does not constitute legal or commercial advice, and while every care has been taken to ensure that the content is useful and accurate, we give no guarantee or warranties and do not accept any legal liability or responsibility for the content or accuracy of the information provided, or for the loss or damage caused by directly or indirectly in connection with reliance on the use of such information. And if you haven't done so already, develop a relationship with a good attorney who specializes in employment law. The area has so many talented individuals. So with that said, this last few months has given us this disruption of our typical business patterns. So we've really had an opportunity to look at human resource practices. So we thought today we would just take a journey and look at 6 areas of your HR process to find out where you are, and then an opportunity to help you get where you want to be through some questions and answers. We're going to do that through a series of yes statements. So what we're hoping is that we've got these 6 long-winded statements that we hope you can answer yes to, and if not, give you a little bit of information to help you get there. Starting with the first yes statement. There's a formal employment application and records management process for all applicants. All who meet minimum job requirements are interviewed, and I never exclude someone for being overqualified nor assume they are too expensive. And when and if I recruit for internships, there's clearly promoted as paid and unpaid, and our volunteers are clearly labeled as such. When you post a job opportunity, you want to do that to widen your net. It doesn't take that much time or effort, and you're shortchanging yourself and your organization when you don't. So invite folks you know to apply to the job. And when we talk about an application, we're not talking about anything overly complicated. It can be a 1-page document asking for individual's name, their contact information, their experience, and their references. Really, that's all. And keep in mind that workforce motivators for many have changed in the last year and a half. Remember, folks have expressed an interest in your organization. So if they look like they're too qualified, you certainly want to interview them. Don't dismiss talent that will positively impact your organization without understanding why they've expressed their interest to begin with. And really, there's 2 things to just keep in mind as you are in this stage, this recruiting stage. Have I promoted this opportunity to reach my target audience? And can I show this job opportunity was open to anyone interested, regardless of their background? We're going to talk a little bit more about records management in a few minutes. But the second statement we want to see if you can answer yes to is that your interview questions are solely based on attributes, skills, and experience relating to the position. I've considered the purpose of the job within the organization, recognizing the latitude that can be offered to the individual filling the position, and interviews are conducted consistently. Again, a lot packed into this statement, but the first thing you'd want to do is consider a reasonable time to conduct an interview. So if you feel, 30 minutes is a good amount of time, you figure you probably have about 6 questions. You allow about 5 minutes for each because there will be discussion. And so you've got a finite number of questions. You want to make sure that you've got the greatest impact with those questions. We've got the top questions here. According to paychecks.com, a survey they did of employers, these are the top 10 most common questions, and some of them are good and some of them could be better, I feel. So again, when you are compiling those questions that you have, those finite number of questions, the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, why am I asking this question? Then you ask yourself, is this going to give me the answer that I am looking for, the information that I am looking for? Just thought we would run through a couple of these. Some of them may be familiar to you. Some of them may be ones that you use. And we'll look at the first two together. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Ask yourself, why am I asking this question? What information am I trying to get? I feel that these questions are so often used that this is where you're going to get your canned answers. And my favorite, the what are your weaknesses, reminds me of conversations that I've had in the past with other folks as they try to determine a way to position a strength to make it sound like a weakness, something like, oh, people tell me I'm just too organized, or, oh, I just get too much attention to detail, right? As an employer, if there's a specific job that requires detail, that acquires that attention or organization, right, that's not really a weakness. Another question, why are you interested in working for us? Again, why are you asking that question? It's usually certainly a good one, and it also allows you to see how much information someone has on your organization and if they've done their research. The next question, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? Again, why are you asking this? It's potentially a good question, especially if the position that you are looking to hire for is a long-term question or something that has a specific skill. I'll use a museum as an example. If you have a museum and you're summer camp and you're also looking for a ticket taker, 2 jobs, both, let's say temporary jobs, so it would be for the same amount of time, asking an employee or potential employee, where do you want to be in 5 years? For someone who is running a summer camp, if that person says they would like to be a teacher or they'd like to work with children or something that's curriculum based, that's great information to know. For your ticket taker, it may not be quite as important where they plan to be in 5 years or 10 years because it's a different skill set you're looking for. The next question, one of the top ones, why do you want to leave your current company? Again, why are you asking this? Potentially a great opportunity to hear how someone presents their current situation. Is it a positive spin? Are they going to just lash out verbally at the situation they are currently in. It may tell you something about that person's professionalism. Sometimes we ask questions in a way where we want some information, but we end up getting more information than we wanted, or the different information than we wanted. This next question: why was there a gap in your employment between this date and this date? You may ask that question and get information that tells you about someone's medical condition, or someone may say that they were caring for a child or an adult, and it may then end up having an answer that puts them in a protected class that may even unintentionally sway your decision. But if we rework the questions that we ask: I see there was a gap in your employment. Can you tell me if there were any things that you learned during that time that would help you in the position you're applying for? Get you the same type of maybe information that you were looking for in a much safer way. Another question: what can you offer us that someone else cannot? Again, ask yourself, is this one of the questions that I want to ask, this finite number of questions? What type of information am I looking for? What are 3 things your former manager would like you to improve on? That's certainly a tough question. And again, one, if someone was anticipating, can be molded, the answer can be molded in a way that you get answers that they're not really things that need to be improved on, but like the weaknesses, positioned in a way that shows their strengths. Are you willing to relocate? Sometimes appropriate, sometimes not, certainly depending on the job. And tell me about an accomplishment you are most proud of. Again, maybe this is a question that you would modify a little bit to make sure that you are getting the answer that you want. It could, if somebody has work history, tell me about a work accomplishment. If they are a younger worker, a minor, tell me about a school accomplishment or an extracurricular. But get a little more specifics, again, so you don't get too much information. Going back to the second part of that yes statement number 2, consider creating a document with these questions that you've chosen and using that document during the interviews, and take notes, both for your reference as well as documentation to support the choice that you're going to eventually make. Ideal candidates may not be able to approach the job as you've had it done in the past. So you ask yourself, as you are looking at the candidate pool that you have, is that okay? Can accommodations be made? Sometimes not. If you're hiring for a receptionist, you need that individual to be maybe able to answer the phones during your business hours. But if you are hiring someone to do your bookkeeping, that could be something that would be able to be done between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. each day. So if we've learned nothing, I feel these last few months, it's certainly that we can make accommodations to make sure we get the right person in the right job. Last, go ahead and create a file with the applications, the resumes, those interview notes. Include a copy of the job description and the job posting, and hold on to that in a file for a year. That's EEOC regulations. And that way, if anyone ever asks you why you made the decision that you did, that you can show without a doubt that you hired the candidate that you felt was best for that job. All right, yes statement number 3. Selected applicants undergo background checks and confirmation of their right to work in the United States, and drug tests are conducted for at least your safety sensitive positions. Checking references is so easy, and it could save you some future heartache for sure. It's as easy as a call, even an email, based on the information, the contact information that you've gotten from the applicant. Any results that you have from your background checks or these tests can be connected to that paperwork for those individuals who you've not hired. Again, just to support the decision that you've made. The rest of that would go into your employment file for that individual who you hired. Now, with the drug tests or the testing, you want to make sure that you don't have to test necessarily everyone in your organization, but if you are testing one individual for his or her job, you do the same for all who do similar type of jobs. So if you have 5 drivers, you need to have the policy that is equal for all 5 drivers. You don't ever want to appear like you are singling someone out. All right, statement number 4. Let's see if you can answer yes to this. My expectations of employment are clearly communicated and can be found in a document the employee keeps. Most easily is an employee handbook. You've signed the acknowledgement form that he or she's received it and understands it. And the acknowledgement form is maintained with your other paperwork according to your legal requirements. Many times we have, especially smaller employers, who say, well, everybody understands what's expected of them. Everyone knows what they need to do. Here are some policies that may be stumbling blocks. Do they know if they can carry a concealed weapon? Do folks really understand the dress code? How about the social media policy? Can employees volunteer their time as well if you are in a nonprofit? Review your employee handbook for these topics. And what about training? Is each new hire given training and understanding of your core mission? Do you have an orientation program that is consistent, where you can make sure that everyone gets everything they need information-wise, no matter how busy you are in that season? And if your processes have changed since the beginning of the pandemic, are those changes reflected in your handbook? This may be a great time to just take a look at it and make sure that all of your expectations are spelled out. And the second half of this, the acknowledgement form is maintained. Remember, I mentioned that the EEOC regulations require that employers keep all personnel or employment records for 1 year after the individual has terminated their employment, but for a minimum of 3 years. So you want to make sure you've got a process that you know how long you have to hold them and when you're able to destroy the documents. All right. Question number 5 as we roll right through these. Employees receive specific feedback on a consistent basis regarding their job performance. There's a process in place for employees whose performance does not meet minimum expectations of the position, and it's administered equitably. Again, in intent, you feel like you are administrating this equitably, but what is the perception? So it's great to have procedures and processes in place so you can point back to that to make sure that everyone understands that they are being treated equally. Specific feedback on a regular basis is so important, and not just that constructive feedback, but even letting folks know what they are doing well and providing them opportunities to excel even in the areas where they are strong, not just always focusing on the areas where they're weaker. Companies have formal, maybe even one-page documents when they sit down with an employee. It's every 6 months, once a year, not just to give a feedback from the past year, but to really come up with some goals and plans and an understanding of the expectation of the year to come. And again, making sure folks understand that when they are providing constructive feedback, they are given an opportunity to change their behaviors. Sometimes it is just so frustrating to continue to work with a specific employee, and we all understand that, and we've all been there. But really, overall, the goal is that you want to keep the employee and just lose the behavior that's not appropriate or that's not acceptable. So giving specific feedback and steps to help them get to their performance where you want it to be it's a win-win for sure. Now, our last statement, can you answer yes to this, that you have an understanding of state and federal laws governing employers and you adhere to them? It includes posters, reasonable accommodations that you make, breaks, pay, and right to work. And if you've got 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, that you understand what that means and what the Child Labor Act tells you how you both schedule those folks and what tasks you give them. And you may say, well, yeah, we're just a small organization. We don't need to worry about a lot of that. But there are some federal employment laws with just one employee, starting with, we're going to look at these, the Equal Pay Act. The Equal Pay Act requires that men and women in the same workplace be given equal pay for equal work. And the jobs don't even need to be identical, they just need to be substantially equal. An Equal Pay Act has really been getting there's been a lot of focus here in the past year with the United States soccer teams and looking at how the men are compensated versus how the women are compensated, and really challenging American companies to look at how they're paying individuals. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with tenure. You understand that as someone stays within your organization, that you will compensate them for that. But this is just having starting salaries. Folks who are doing similar jobs are paid equally. The second is the Fair Labor Standards Act, and this created the right to a minimum wage and the overtime with time and a half pay. It also defines non-exempt and exempt employees. Many times we stumble here because we'll have employees who have a job that they're on and off the clock a lot. Their hours are hard to track. So we say, okay, we'll just make you exempt, which means exempt from overtime pay. And that way you just work when you need to work and you get done what you need to get done, and that's it. But actually the FLSA has very specific rules as to what constitutes an exempt or a non-exempt employee. So if you haven't, please take a look at that, especially if you do have employees who you consider exempt. The penalty of that is an individual who has been exempt, who feels that they were non-exempt, are entitled to up to 2 years of overtime pay after they submit a complaint. The National Labor Relations Act, which was enacted in 1935, protecting the rights of employees and employers, encouraging collective bargaining and curtailing harmful private sector labor and management practices. The Uniformed Service Employment and Reemployment Rights Act protects our servicemen and women. So if they're deployed, that when they come back, they will come back to a job that doesn't have to be the exact job that they left, but one that is similar. It also protects those who have served, and including our disabled veterans, requiring employers to make reasonable efforts to accommodate any disability that they may have. Another federal employment law is OSHA, the Occupational Safety Health Act, and Tennessee OSHA. This ensures employees work in a safe and a healthful environment, setting and enforcing standards, of providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. Did you know that you have to comply as an employer with all OSHA standards? And the state of Tennessee has a similar law that all Tennessee companies must abide by, no matter how many employees you have. The next is the Notice of Exchange and Subsidies. This is associated with the Affordable Care Act, that you must let all new employees know within 14 days of their start date whether you have an employee-sponsored health plan or not, and you provide them written documentation that lets them know what you offer. The next is the Immigration Reform and Control Act, and this is where we get our I-9 paperwork. This makes it illegal for employers to knowingly hire illegal immigrants. This is why folks are required to show a right to work in the United States, and that's the paperwork that you hold on to for, again, a year after an employee terminates. The last on our list here is the Employee Polygraph Protection Act, protecting employees from pre-employment polygraph tests in many instances, as well as while they are employed by you. We've got the Wage Regulation Act. This is the Tennessee state law protecting wage earners, making sure that they are paid when they need to be paid, that they get their final paychecks, that breaks and meal periods are offered. You know, it is Tennessee state law that an employee gets a 30-minute break after working 6 hours. It also protects individuals from paid vacation, holidays, and sexual discrimination. I had mentioned the Child Labor Act briefly earlier. Folks that are under the age of 18 can only work specific hours and do specific jobs. And there's two sets of standards, one for your 14 and 15-year-olds, one for your 16 and 17-year-olds. So if you employ students or employees under the age of 18, make sure that you are aware of what they can and cannot do. The Tennessee New Hire Reporting Form helps the state of Tennessee, protects them from unemployment payment fraud. So when you hire someone, make sure to let the state of Tennessee know, if you are in Tennessee, within 20 days that you have hired or rehired an individual. The Employment Securities Act, or it used to be the Tennessee Unemployment Compensation Act, defines who is eligible for unemployment compensation and the insurance process and the costs to each employer. We have the Tennessee Public Protection Act, or the whistleblowing statute, to protect employees from refusing to remain silent or to participate in an illegal activity. Your Online Privacy Act makes it illegal for employers to force potential employees or employees to either show their online presence, their social media, give passwords for their social media accounts, or to have someone accept the employer as someone who can view their social media accounts. And as you grow as an organization, you may have additional employment laws. Just for employees, then you've got the Tennessee Non-Smokers Protection Act, 5, Compensation Act for jury duty, 8 employees with you need to know about the Tennessee Human Rights Act and the Tennessee Disability Act. And then 15 employees, that's Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Americans with Disabilities Act as well. The Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. Some of you may not be as familiar with this, but if you've got 15 or more employees, you cannot use genetic information to discriminate against with employment. We've got the Employment Discrimination Act that from 1978, as well as the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. And as you get to 20 employees, the age discrimination, which is protecting folks who are 40 or over, and 50 is the Family and Medical Leave Act, requiring individuals to get their job or to retain employment status with 12 weeks of non-paid leave to help a family member. We also have the Affordable Care Act, and then once you hit 100 individuals, the Tennessee Maternity Leave Act is enacted. I ran through those because I wanted to spend a little bit of time on these special topics for nonprofits. I feel that reaches a number of you who are with us today. It is illegal for any organization, including nonprofits, to delay regular and timely wage payments. The Whistleblower Protection Act, federal law, prohibits all corporations, including nonprofits, from retaliating against employees who blow the whistle on their employers' financial management and accounting practices. Additionally, adopting a whistleblower protection policy signals to employees, to board members, to the public that your nonprofit is open to hearing concerns and complaints about its practices, demonstrating that it values transparency and accountability practices. Next is the delaying payroll tax and other taxes. All organizations are required to pay payroll and other taxes regularly. Not doing so results in a lien and the withdrawal of state or federal funding. Workers' compensation, Tennessee, that's 5 or more employees. In Georgia, it's 3 or more. All organizations, including nonprofits, are required to offer workers' comp. It applies to every employer. And the unemployment insurance, including nonprofits, required to provide unemployment insurance. Nonprofits are exempt from federal unemployment taxes, but still must pay state unemployment taxes. Georgia nonprofits, exempt from federal employment taxes, but they pay for the state unemployment taxes. I just mentioned that, I'm sorry. Volunteers can't claim minimum wage or overtime compensation. Last, the interns and unpaid internships are generally permissible for a nonprofit charitable organization, but that is not defined. So interns from time to time have brought claims, FLSA claims, to nonprofit organizations. So here I would just say, to protect yourself, you make sure that there is a definite difference between what you have your interns doing and your paid staff doing, and that's for your organization's protection. All right, I know we ran through that quickly, but with these 6 statements that hopefully you could answer yes to, or it's given you some feedback or some food for thought, we'd now like to open up to your questions. Is there anything that we had said that you'd like more information on? Lynn and I are both here to answer any questions that you have.
And Angie, I don't think we've got any.
All right, are there any questions at all, or is there anything in chat?
And I'm looking on Facebook for our live crew, and doesn't look like we've got any questions there either.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, that'll be good. And you know, we will just end up talking to people that are members of the Arts Build. If anybody has any questions or would like to have an audit, that would be great. So
All right. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here with us today. And folks, if you're watching this after the fact, feel free to reach out to us if you'd like us to connect you with HR Biz Solutions. We'd be happy to do that. So you can get more information like what Miss Angie presented us with today. So with that, I'll give everybody their time back. And thank you,
very
Lynn,
much.
and thank you, Angie, for being here with us today. And we will
Thank
see you next month.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.